My name is David.
And my name is Jason.
And this is Discern Realities, a Dungeon World podcast. Our first segment is What Happened Here Recently. Well, Jason, I've been running some more Death Frost Doom.
Okay, good. It's a thing that's happening right now.
Yeah, it's a thing. But I keep running the entire thing, the short one that I have. I had a player here locally in Lubbock who wanted to try it out, and they asked me if I would run it, and I said sure.
Just one person, or?
No, it was a group, but he was the one who requested it. There's some friends of mine, but he wanted to try out a clock mage, which, in particular with Death Frost Doom, if you are familiar with it, listeners, you will know that there is in the game, a fictional countdown clock kind of thing, and it is very reliant on time.
Yeah, and also just the basic manipulation of time is a theme in that module, right? I mean, like all the liquid time beneath the mountain and stuff.
Right. Yeah, there's all of that going on, and he's like messing around with time. And then he has a big ask, he's like, I want to try and pull off this spell where I'm going to try and stop whatever is unraveling here. He doesn't really know what it is, but he knows something is unraveling. He's like, I want to try and stop it from happening. And I was like, well, like what specifically are you trying to do? And we kind of hashed it out. And what it kind of came down to is he was in the library where there's all the books, and he's trying to, learn everything he can about the Duvan-Ku cult. And he freezes everything. He doesn't know that he stopped the countdown clock, and that would basically end the game. But I told him, I was like, yep, you do it, and it works, but you said that it would be bigger than you thought that it would be. It froze your companions, and you're the only one who can move.
Okay.
So what that came down to was I was like, well, how many rations do you have? Okay, I'll give you... Yeah, they had 8 rations between them, and he wanted to leave 1 for each person. So I was like, all right, well, I'll give you 5 hold, and you can just ask something that would be a spout lore, and I'll just tell you what it is anytime later on. And then we unfroze time, and I was like, hey guys, what do you see that let you know a week just passed in an instant?
Good, right, that's good.
And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So you basically abstracted all that time passing and him studying, the Duvan-Ku.
Right, yeah. I mean, he's in the library. He's got some notes, so he's using the notes to kind of suss out what their language is so that he can translate different books. And I was like, which books are you trying to translate? And, how much time are you spending on that? And then I kind of gave him the hold depending, as well as just some information.
Yeah, that's cool. That seems like a good way of handling that. That clock mage... that's the Mage playbook with the little sort of clock, specialty or whatever,
right,
or time specialty. That's one of the ones that whenever people accuse the Mage of being an overpowered playbook, that's one of the ones that's the specialty they usually point to, because some people will try to spam that, sort of stopping time and reversing time, or freezing the monster so that you can just walk up and kill the monster. It can be very tricky to handle it as a GM.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much just warned him every time he had a big ask. I was like, this is a big ask. If this goes poorly, I'm going to hit you hard.
Right, yeah, I think that's how you have to handle the Mage. Yeah. You make the stakes really high.
So I think it turned out okay. It was a grand adventure. It was very different than the other Death Frost Doom that I've run, just because of... I mean, every time it's different. Every time the players are reacting differently and doing different things. So it was, once again, fun to run, but... I think I'm good on Death Frost Doom for a little while. How's your campaign going?
Mine's going well. And in fact, we have 2 more sessions. It was a 5-session run that I'm doing. Mine's much more kind of drawn out, I think, than yours is. I have put the first session of our game, the Hangout, up on YouTube. You can find it actually if you go to gauntlet-rpg.com and then go to the Discern Realities feed. You'll see that I have a link there with the embedded video of that first session of my Death Frost Doom thing, if people want to check that out. Especially if you're following along with my notes, it might be kind of fun to see how it all kind of worked out in play.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for making that available.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was and I also put a bunch of notes on it, so it's a very, very detailed, annotated sort of time codes on the video, so you can kind of see just kind of my observations about what was happening at that time. So
Okay, well, that's really useful then, yeah. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment. Our next segment is What Should I Be on the Lookout For? Listeners will recall last episode, episode 28, we spoke about fudging the numbers sometimes, or fudging what kind of dice you're going to roll, or, you know, not always having the stats for monsters prepared.
For monster stats, yeah.
Listener Jeremy Strandberg, I think that's right. Yeah, he shared a document with us that was really, really cool. It basically takes all of the mechanical creation of a monster from the Dungeon World book and from Codex, and puts it on one single page, so you could have it right there to reference at your table if you want to, so you can generate monsters really effectively on the fly. And it was a really nice document. I was looking over it, and I just, you know, he shared it with us, and I think it's pretty great. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I saw when he tagged us into that G Plus post about it, and I took a quick glance at it, and yeah, I thought that was really cool. It seemed very handy. Like it looked like a nice, like kind of quick, glanceable way of generating some monster stats on the fly. It was really solid. A lot of work went into it. It looked really good.
Yeah, so we'll post a link to that feed that he sent us, and you can take a look at it too.
Jeremy Strandberg, who wrote that, he's actually working on that Stone Top campaign setting with Jason Lutz. Yeah, he does Perilous Wilds and Funnel World, yeah. I think he's working on a campaign setting called Stone Top, which looked pretty cool, kind of focused on like a sort of local adventuring party, like an adventuring party that kind of stays in a very localized area. I thought that was pretty neat. We should probably have him on sometime to talk about that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to have him on. Let's move on to the next segment. Our next segment is What Here Is Not What It Appears to Be.
So let's talk about the Ranger's animal companion, okay?
What, the one that's always a wolf?
Yeah, the one that's always a wolf. I've observed that. I don't know if you had. I put it in our notes kind of jokingly.
No, that's true. Like that is life.
They always go for the wolf. No, not every time, but lately it feels like all my Rangers have been choosing the wolf.
I blame Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about the Game of Thrones connection. You're right. That's probably what it is. I just thought because, like, if you look at the sheet, it's the very first option, and it's kind of like one of the better options, like at least on paper, it's one of the better options versus like a cat or a pigeon, you know? So, I mean, I think there's also like a cougar and a bear, but like a bear is really big, right? And a wolf's way more badass than a cougar, right? So I kind of see why people kind of instinctively choose the wolf. Anyway, I wanted to talk about ways that you can make the other animal companion options maybe a little more interesting, as well as the possibility of introducing some other types of animal companions that are not listed on the sheet. Okay,
I can see that. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't just write in any animal, as long as it's not a monster. It needs to be an animal.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. So let's start with the other proposition first, which is making the existing animal companions more interesting. One of the things that I think is really cool to do if you're the GM is if you go out of your way to give the animal companion kind of like its own secrets and its own inner life. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like I always role play the animal companion, like whenever, like especially during like Make Camp. Like during Make Camp, I always like kind of make a point of either asking what the animal companion is doing or just straight up saying what the animal companion is doing. And I like to give them a little bit of personality. I think there are ways that you can really do cool and interesting things with the animal companion choices based off the tags that you choose, right? So, for example, one of your characters, David, from a long time ago in one of my face-to-face Dungeon World games was this ranger named Pigeonhead, right? And Pigeonhead... you didn't actually make that character, but the person, you just kind of took the character over, but the person who made the character, they had chosen a pigeon as their animal companion, and they chose some like really offbeat like tags for it, you know, like these are all tags that they could legitimately choose, but it's not what you might have thought to, you know, you might not have thought to choose these for a pigeon. He chose huge, quick, and savage, right? That player who was playing him only played one session, and we kind of liked the character, and so he wasn't able to continue playing with us, and so you just kind of picked up the character. And I love how that pigeon developed just because the tags were huge, quick, and savage, right? It ended up being this pigeon like had so much personality because he was so like unusual vis-a-vis other normal pigeons, right? He was gigantic. He was the size of like a medicine ball. He was disgusting. Like he was just like really disgusting. Like it vomited all the time, and like it ate, like it would just eat and eat and eat and then just puke, you know? Eventually it started to kind of like, it became obvious that like it had like ulterior motives and that it was actually secretly controlling the ranger. And
it became
it just went to
plainly obvious once the ranger could speak with it.
Right. Yeah. There were like over the course of a number of sessions, like this pigeon like kind of developed, and like it started to have this sort of like own like kind of secret lore associated with it and stuff. It ended up being like kind of a demon or something, and like, you know, I don't know, it was wild. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Like just by choosing sort of like somewhat offbeat tags for the animal companion, we were able to arrive at this really fictionally interesting result.
Oh yeah, I mean that pigeon had a life of its own. Like it had a rivalry with one of the other player characters.
Right, yeah.
They were constantly trying to one up each other. At one point, the pigeon died, and that was like one of the like more like dramatic and comic moments.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, at that point, the pigeon was basically a monster, right? I mean, like the pigeon kind of stopped being an animal pretty early on. He was a monster, but I think it was okay. Like it didn't really like change the. You know, it certainly didn't change anything mechanically. Like he still functioned mechanically like an animal companion, but we were able to like really expand the fiction around the animal companion and kind of do some cool things with it. Something I like to do every now and then, I've done this in maybe 3 or 4 adventures ago in my online games. I had the situation where I used the ranger's animal companion. I used like their affection as kind of like a tool for creating some tension within the party. Like I had the animal companion like behave in a way that like was clearly the animal companion bonding with the other party members. And that was like oddly tension building, like because the ranger was like not really into that, you know, but they were at the same time, like they couldn't really object, you know, it's like, oh, okay, my animal's over there sitting in your lap while we make camp, you know, or, you know, it was that kind of thing. Right. And, so I thought that was fun. Just a way of like kind of making the animal companion, you know, story a little more interesting. Anyway, my overall point is find ways to give the animal companions like their own sort of like inner life, their own secrets, their own like, you know, just make them interesting. You don't have to just like settle for them being just like a stat boost.
Yeah. It's always kind of sad to me whenever like it's almost forgotten that the animal companion is there until the player tries to make a roll.
Yeah, and it's a thing that can happen, right? So I'm always like trying to keep the animal companion in the forefront of my thought. It's not easy, especially if you have like a big group. It's not easy to, you know, to remember to keep the animal companion in the action, but beyond whatever the ranger, you know, has them do in a fight or whatever. But it's worth doing. It really creates some nice dynamics, you know, at the table. It creates like a nice, you know, it just makes it feel more real and enriching. One other thing I wanted to mention about like ways you can maybe make the listed animal companions a little more interesting is to consider giving the animal companion like powers of a sort. For example, right now we have a character with an animal companion who is a blink dog, which is like a dog that just like teleports in and out of, short distances or whatever. Cookie the blink dog. It's really fun because nothing has actually changed stat-wise. Cookie still functions like she will function the way an animal companion, should functions in terms of the stats. But her blinking power gives us like fun fictional positioning opportunities, right? So she still functions like an animal companion. She still does, you add this thing to this check, or you add this to that, you add this to the damage or whatever. But kind of fictionally, we can do some cool things with it because she's a blink dog, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. The only thing I'm concerned about is blink dogs are monsters, and one of the advanced moves for the animal companion is that they can become a monster later on if you take that advancement.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
But I actually have one of my characters has a blink dog that is his animal companion that I I worked out with the GM that I was playing with. I was like, hey, I saved these blink dogs from getting annihilated. I was not a ranger at the time. I was a different character class. I was a druid, and I was about to take the advancement, the multi-class dabbler, that would let me take an animal companion. And I asked if it was okay if it was a blink dog, and he said sure. But yeah, I like it. It's just there's just that one thing about like
the advanced move that lets you take a monster.
The advanced move that lets it be a monster.
That's a fair point. I don't have the playbook pulled up in front of me, and I can't remember like what that option adds stat wise, if anything. Do you recall?
I think it adds like another fierce, which basically gets you like it can do one more thing, and it does like one more damage in combat if it's helping you.
Ah, I see. Well, so in that case, I think it's okay to fudge it a little bit then, because even if you take that advanced move, it's just making the animal better, right?
Right.
Like they get, so it's not like that's a wasted advanced move. So I don't know. I guess I think I'm pretty agnostic about it I'm starting to come around to this idea of like, I'm more interested in like cool fictional positioning than I am like being hard and fast. Like, okay, it's got to be, an earth-based animal or whatever. But what do you think about like just choosing other types of animals for the animal companion, like as a way of spicing things up?
I think that's fine. I'm pretty sure that's in the rules. Like,
oh, is it?
I think there's like a blank spot. It's like write your own, as long as it's an animal.
Oh, it might be. Okay, I don't remember that. Well, so I've seen some cool things in games that I've run. I've had players use a hive of bees as their animal companion. That was pretty fun. Like, just like the way they controlled the bees and commanded the bees, and the bees could do like, just the way the bees functioned was really kind of neat. It was really cool because like he could justify like doing a more like wide-ranging discern realities,
okay.
Like by using the bees, the hive minds of the bees, right? That kind of thing.
Did he just carry a hive around with him, like on his back?
Yeah. It was the character was a woman, but yeah, she carried this hive around. Per the rules, they instinctively understand your commands, right? Like it's a supernatural connection, and but I think she still used like smoke to charm them or whatever. So I've seen like other big cats besides just cougars. I've seen like cheetahs and tigers and that kind of thing. I've run like games in Spelljammer and Carcosa, and so I've had like rangers give their animals like strange colorings and mutations, all that kind of thing. Our friend Daniel made an animal companion that was like this like bizarre hissing centipede thing. I think it's okay to play with that personally, and I think it just makes it more interesting. I think you should, as a GM, you should give your ranger player the option, right? Like say, okay, you don't just have to pick wolf. Like we can get a little more creative here if you want.
Yeah. I mean, think about something that could be an animal in a fantasy setting that's not like a monster, but is like a reasonable ask for an animal.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to have that conversation. I mean, like, I think the power of Dungeon World is you have a lot of freedom in the system, right? Like, you have a lot of freedom, and using that freedom to create cool fictional moments, like cool fictional, positioning circumstances, cool, like, just doing really like awesome on-screen things, while still staying within like, this set of rules that like, maintains a certain level of balance. I think it's what makes Dungeon World great.
Yeah, definitely. The flexibility that the system provides and the ease with which you can change things around and not like have to worry about like a bunch of stats and things like that. And it's really just delightful to be able to do things like that, like carry around a hive of bees.
Well, it's why homebrewing is so easy in Dungeon World, right? Like making magic items and stuff, because you don't have to worry too much. You don't have to worry too much about balance, right? You have to just you can stay focused on the cool thing, right?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to our next segment. Our next segment is what here is useful or valuable to me.
Okay, so we have this contest going on whereby we are asking you to submit items, custom moves, rituals, characters, monsters inspired by the cover image on the first issue of our little magazine Codex. If you'd like more details about that, just go to G+ and find our community. We're talking about it all the time. We have a submission here that we'd like to do today. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. This, I think, was the first submission, and it was really, really good. This submission is from Robert Doe, and it is called The Familiar of the First Tree. You've petitioned to the spirit of the first tree for guidance, waited 7 nights for a sign, only to find a small saproling. The sapperling clings to you, craving blood and moonlight. When you ask the sapperling for direction within the forest of the first tree, subtract 1 to 3 hit points and feed the sapperling that many drops of your blood, then roll plus however many drops you used. On a 10 plus, the sapperling will point you in the direction, swaying and tugging whenever necessary. On a 7 to 9, the sapperling craves for moonlight. You will only get your directions under the light of the moon.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It leaves that 6 minus result wide open, and you've got this, like, leeching, I don't know,
tree thing,
semi-symbiotic, semi-parasitic relationship with a tree thing.
Yeah.
I can dig it. Like, this is really evocative, and I can totally see that coming out of the picture that's on the Codex Keeper picture.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can, like, reading this. I guess it's a move, really. Reading it, I can see all the different, like, elements that he pulled out of that picture, right? Like, we've got the little tree, we've got the, clearly the tree is fed with blood, we've got the moonlight, like, all that stuff's in there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So thanks for submitting that. Can't wait to see some more. In case we didn't mention it, this is for a prize.
Yeah. It's for a $25 drive-through gift certificate. And if you'd like to participate, we're taking submissions all the way until September 15th. Feel free to paste your submissions into the comments of one of our G Plus posts for Discern Realities, or you can email them to me as well at gauntletpodcast@gmail.com. Some people asked for an email option because they felt a little shy putting their thing out there for everybody to see. So, so if you want to email it, gauntletpodcast@gmail.com.
Sweet. Can't wait to read some more. Let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. Our next segment is What is About to Happen.
This is our ongoing comic strip AP. Normally I say featuring the adventures of X character, but I don't know how to introduce it this time.
Just say it.
Featuring the adventures of Ramshackle Crow.
Woo!
I have a love letter for you, Ramshackle. Dear Ramshackle, when last we saw you, you were passing beyond the black gates of death. But you weren't content to stay there for long. Tell me about your time in the lands beyond the Black Gate. Then, describe your plan for escaping into the outer planes that surround the Black Gate and roll plus stat. On a hit, you escape free and clear. On a 10 plus, you also manage to bring someone with you. Describe them and then work with me to give them hireling stats. On a miss, you escape, but death will ceaselessly hunt you until you are returned.
Awesome. I'm really excited to try this out.
Yes, and to be clear, Ramshackle's adventures will be continuing in the planes beyond the prime material plane. So essentially we're doing kind of a planar codex thing here.
Yeah. I described Catspaw Patterson, my old master, throwing his chains through the Black Gate and them digging into me and him dragging me across the river of my childhood to be his servant again. And the lands beyond the Black Gate are really surreal in the sense that it's kind of like a ghost version of the city, but everything's burnt out, destroyed, and all of Catspaw's old cut purses are here, except we're all grown up and dead. Some of us are dismembered in different ways depending on how we died, but we're all there. All the ones that have died, he sought us out in the afterlife to serve him once again. And he has some kind of deal with the denizens of whatever this land is, where it's just a hierarchy where as long as he keeps paying them their dues, then he gets to maintain his power over us, and we can't do anything about it. It's hard to kill somebody once they're dead, so we can't just like uprise against him, and he has power and he has leverage over us. But one of the small respites that I have is going to the bone orchard, where there are these trees that produce. They're made of bone, and they produce little skulls, and they're delicious. Like,
okay.
By comparison to everything else that we eat, they only taste like ash, so they're fantastic. and I eat them, and I watch the little ash bits like fall through my rib cage and out onto the ground. But I noticed something weird. The tree's branches are just great big, oversized forearm bones, and then the leaves are like digits, but they just have way too many digits. And if you hang out under the trees too long, they'll eventually reach down and kind of tangle in you.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah,
they'll try and pull you in, but you just slap them away. It's no big deal as long as you don't fall asleep. Then they just swallow you up and produce more little skulls. But I noticed a couple of these brachial, arms have reached together, and their hands, all the digits are getting intertwined. And just as the double moons of this plane come up and get behind that, you look through, and instead of ash and gray and different shades of monochromatic gray and black and white, you can see color through it. And I noticed that the other day, and I got close to it, and I heard like a strange humming. I got a little bit scared because it's been a while since I've seen color, and I ran away. But I think that might be something. There might be something to that. That might be a way out.
Okay. All right. Well, so describe your manner of escape.
Right. So we just spent the last 72 hours on, so we get 1 hour off. And I did good work, so I get an extra 5 minutes. And I'm spending my 65 minutes with a friend of mine, and we're gonna go check out this bone orchard because I've been telling him about it, and I was trying to describe the colors blue and red and purple, and I just couldn't figure out how. So I was like, "You just have to come see it. Just come see it."
Nice. So the escape.
So I'm just gonna try and like touch the color and see what happens.
Let's have the love letter roll be con.
11.
Awesome. Okay, well, so per the move, you're going to escape, and you'll also be able to bring this person with you. I assume this person you described as your friend is who you're bringing with you.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, so go ahead and describe the escape.
So we both get there, and the moons are just about to rise, and it's always kind of like disconcerting when the moons rise because different kinds of creatures come out under the moon. But it's safe in this bone orchard. Safe meaning you'll just get eaten by trees. You won't get tormented by demons. So we're not too worried about it, but we're watching the moons come up. And just as they reach that point where this tree's arms and digits are meeting, we see like a shimmer from along their vertebrae trunks and their arm bone leaves and branches. And it fills into the middle very quickly, like a old school TV turning on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We behold color. We haven't seen it in a while. I saw it recently, but it's still just dazzling. And he kind of freaks out and like takes a couple steps back, and I'm like, I bet you won't touch it. And we're just kind of like daring each other a little bit closer and a little bit closer until finally one of us puts our hand on it. And then we materialize on the other side in full flesh, like we haven't seen before or haven't seen in a long, long time. I nearly forgot what it was like to have a stomach and all the skin on my fingers and toenails and fingernails. It's very strange sensation to have that again.
Nice. Here's what I think we're going to do. Next session, we will have come up with your hireling. Okay, this person that you brought with you. We'll have them statted out, and we'll introduce them to the listeners, okay?
All right, sounds good.
And then we're going to pick up the story approximately 100 years after Ramshackle and his companion have made a career for themselves in the city of Dis.
Awesome. That just leaves one final question. Who's really in control here?
That would be the Gauntlet Gaming Community. We can be found on our website at gauntlet-rpg.com. On that website, you'll find links to all of our various podcasts, as well as our G Plus community, which is awesome. You should go join it, and our face-to-face and online meetups. We are on Twitter at GauntletRPG.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, listeners. That's our show. What do you call this? Bone.
The bark.
The bone. What do you call this bone?
Oh, the femur bone?
Femur. No. Arm.
No. Forearm bone. Tibia.
Tibia.
No. I don't know.
Shit.
Just say the forearm bone.
Yeah.